Okay, it's 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and we are recording. Lauren, do you want to start?
Sure thing. Yeah, so we'll just introduce ourselves first, and I'll go over kind of an overview of what today's talk will be like, and Brittany might want to say a few words about the kind of series in general. My name is Lauren Bellard. I work in the library. My title is Urban Studies Librarian because I work with the urban. I also work a lot with the history department and with the Honors College. And so I have helped students find oral histories a number of times. I also used to, when I was in library school, work for an oral history database. So I have a little bit of experience on a few ends of that. I've never conducted my own oral history still, so maybe Brittany can tell us a little bit more about that. But yeah, Brittany, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Brittany Newberry. I'm the music and popular culture archivist here in the library. So as part of my collections, we have a lot of oral history interviews, and then we, as a whole department, special collections archives, conduct oral history interviews and collect them, and we do these workshops a lot. So as I said before, this is being recorded, which will provide access to recording later on. And there will be more workshops in this series. This is just the second workshop. So if you want to come and learn about interviewing, planning an oral history project, please come to the next ones. There will be a slide at the end with those dates and links to register.
And we'll also have time for a Q&A at the end of this talk today. So today, this workshop will focus on finding oral histories in the GSU archives and special collections. We'll also talk about finding oral histories in other databases, and I have a couple of examples. We'll talk about how oral histories are used in research. Why do people care about creating or integrating oral history into their research projects? We'll talk about citing oral histories and also go over a little bit about resources for conducting your own oral history. So it's a pretty broad talk today, but it's not totally comprehensive. That's, as Brittany was saying, we have other talks in the series that go a little more into depth and into some of these topics, especially conducting your own oral histories. So Brittany, if you want to talk about GSU, Archive and Special Collections, and finding oral histories there.
Yeah, so let's talk about what's in Georgia State. So on the screen is just a screenshot of one of our research guides, but I'm going to switch it over to show you where you can actually find all of this stuff. So you should be seeing the Georgia State University Library homepage.
That's what we're seeing.
Awesome. So on this homepage is where, you go all the time to find library sources, right? So for finding information about oral histories at Georgia State, you can go to research tab and then go over to the research guides. Within here, you're going to want to change how you look at it by group and select special collections and archives. Let me zoom in so you guys can see it a little better. So here is all the research guides that we in Special Collections and Archives have created. And you'll notice as you look at the list that a lot of them say oral history or oral history project, because we have ones dedicated to specific projects. I'll go into like those in a minute, but I wanted to show you our general one. So if you scroll down, you'll see one that says oral histories at GSU. And you can click on this to learn more information about the projects that we do here in the archive. So it'll give you a general overview and how to contact us. You'll see a list of some projects that we have we're working on and links out to them. So this will take you to those research guides specifically. And you'll see them separated by collecting area. We have various collecting areas within the archive. So we have ones on gender and sexuality, music, and radio broadcasting. Our social change collections are now Atlanta civic and neighborhood history. So any under here are about Atlanta's history and within neighborhoods and such, politics and everything. And then one of our largest collecting area, and some of the most oral histories I think we have are within the Southern Labor Archive, which go over labor unions, labor organizations, various aspects of organizing and doing labor within the South. And there's a lot of great oral histories within that. And then we also have our women's collections. And then we just have general oral history projects because some schools or departments may want to do oral history interviews, and they may not fit within our collecting areas. But since we are Georgia State University's archives as well, and we collect on the university, we will take and preserve those oral history interviews for different schools and departments. So we have religious life stories from the religious studies, and then this one from the College of Arts and Sciences. So if you're a member of any of those departments and you would like to donate oral history interviews, you can always reach out to us and we can help you preserve them. So also great here is getting started, which we'll go over more when we talk about conducting oral history interviews. And that's what all these other tabs are about, like how to best conduct and what resources we have for you. So let's go to one of the research guides that talks about oral history. So as you saw in our oral history projects, we have them all listed and linked. And then when you're back on the special collections research guides, you'll see all of them listed in alphabetical order. So if we were to go to Activist Women Oral History Project, it gives you an overview of the project, like why was this done? Who did we do it with? What years did it take place? Like the forms, the formats of the interviews, because they could be audio recordings, video recordings. We could have received them from like a donor, that kind of thing. And then it gives you that's the subject guide, like what subjects are within these oral history interviews. And so each interview is given subjects and then they're separated out based on that. So you can look at Amy Ray's oral history interview to hear more about the arts and her work in that, and then civil rights and all of that. So that's great for like different subject searching and everything like that. And you can see there's a lot of interviews and a lot of topics within these interviews, and you can click on them and it should take you to that person. So it's like linked within the research guide because we also have them in alphabetical order on last name. So based on last name. And so it will tell you about the interviewee, give you some information about them, like their biography, as well as if it's available and you can listen to it online or read the transcript online, you'll see this transcript and audio and be able to go to our website that hosts us, our digital collections website, and watch or listen to the audio, depends on if it's video or audio, and then read the transcript as well. So these are not all have that available. Majority of ours are open to the public, but if they're restricted, it will tell you, oh, you can only access this in our research room. So you'll get that information in this guide as well. And then there's information on how to support it and how you can be a part of this work to help create oral history interviews. So that's just one of the many projects we have going on. And just the research guides is just one way of finding our oral history interviews. So if we were to go back to the library's homepage and we go to special collections here and we click on archive space, this is our website for all of our collections within the archives. So it's not just oral history interviews, it's all collections that we have available for research. So our primary sources and collections. So this homepage for the site is where you can search. And so you can search here, similar to how you would search in databases. You can search with asterisk to help you find all the oral history interviews that we have, or all the collections that may have oral history, because we do have them broken into collections. So you can go to the Gender and Sexuality Oral History Collection, or Great Speckled Bird Oral History Project. And when you click on them, it will provide you information about the collection itself and then give you a list of the interviews that you can request access to view. And a lot of them will have it where you can click on this to go to the
I'm
actual
Wesley Chenault. I am with
recording of the interview. So some have that, but not all. So that is something. So when you're in here and you see one, you may be able to access the interview from Archive Space itself in YouTube or wherever we have it hosted. But as you can see, not all of them have that. But this is a great way. And you can even search in here, not just oral history, but you can search your topic. And if oral history has that topic and is in a collection with that topic, because we have subjects and various other things, you can find oral histories with that topic and listen to them and get that context from someone who's experienced it or lived through that type of event or topic. So we have that. And then if we go back to, I'm going back to the homepage. I like to start at the homepage just so you know where to orient yourself. So if we go back to the library's homepage and we go down, you'll see what's called digital collections. You can click explore here. And that will bring you to our digital collections website, which houses everything that we have that's digitally available. This is only a small portion of what we have available, but majority of our oral history are something that we provide access to online if we're able to. So here is it's broken down into different collecting areas and subjects, and you can go within them to find oral history. So you can click on one and you'll be taken to the page about it and learn about the collection and the different things within it. So you can see this has oral histories within it. And these links will take you to the interviews that were in that collection within digital collection. So you can see all of them listed. But you can also just click browse and go through the whole collection, and you can go to the side here and see if under let's see, source format, if it says oral histories, you can click on that and it will narrow your results to just items like that have our oral history interview, and you can click on them and view them, kind of thing. But if you're like, I just want to know all the oral history interviews that are in digital collections, you can click on advanced search, change the field to format, and type in oral histories. And that should load majority of our oral history interviews, which you see there's almost 1,200 in here. Some of them are just transcripts because we can't provide access to the recording based on restrictions or what the interviewee agreed to. But you can see that a lot of them are what are called web files, which should be the recording plus the transcript. And occasionally you're able to download these. Most of the time you're not. You'll have to request a digital copy if you want a copy for yourself. And that's what the request item is for. But from here you can play and listen to it.
I spent, 21 years being a recording secretary.
And then below it, you can see information about them. You'll get the biographical note, who interviewed them, the dates, the subjects. So you can search these subjects within digital collections to get these oral history interviews, even locations, and then the actual collection it came from. So this came from the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers oral history. So you get all that information down here. But it's always, if you're looking for just oral histories in general, you can search based on the source format. But then if you want ones for various subjects, you can search various subject terms. And you can even click on these within an item to get more items that have that subject term. So you can look through digital collections for oral histories and other items associated with it as you go through. So you can keep just clicking on links, but you can always use the side to narrow your search and find oral histories based on like format and such. And like I said, majority of our collecting areas have oral history projects. These might not say oral history in their title, but you can probably go through most of them and find oral histories with them in them. I know the Georgia Government Documentation Project has a lot of oral histories within it, and because it's mainly oral histories. So yeah. And they're from various decades. I think we start out in like the 70s from when we were founded in 1971 to present day. And then if people donate us ones that were prior to that, we will scan them and put them online. So it's various dates. But I think that was everything I wanted to go over for how to find oral histories at Georgia State. So I'm going to turn it back over to Lauren to go over the next things, which is finding oral histories other places.
Thank you, Brittany. Yeah, as Brittany just showed us, there's plenty of ways to find oral histories here at GSU. Different university archives and special collections will have kind of a different interface as far as that goes. So Brittany and I, and really all the library faculty and staff, are always here to help you find what you need, whether it's housed at our library or archives and special collections, or at another universities or archives. So if you're having trouble, just let any of us know. So yeah, I wanted to talk, I'll just give a few examples of other databases. If you would go to the next slide, Brittany. First of all, searching in our university library catalog can be really helpful. These are different examples of Library of Congress subject headings. So these are kind of, you can think of them as like the tags that get applied to books and other materials that we have records for in the catalog. So you can think of them as, some of them are kind of synonyms or related words. Some of them just go a little bit more detailed or deeper into an aspect of oral history. So these are really common ones to search. I've got oral histories. If you're kind of looking for a book about oral history, you can search oral history philosophy, oral history methodology. That might help get you started if you're writing about methodology or doing your own project. Oral history is a very popular methodology within public history. So that could be a helpful subject heading. And I've got a screenshot coming up where you can see what I mean by subject searching. Storytelling for some folks could be kind of synonymous with oral histories, digital storytelling, or interviewing. So you can kind of keep all of these words in mind when you are searching for oral histories. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is a screenshot that I took of a search within our GSU library catalog, also known as GILS. This is in the advanced search. And when I said subject, see this first subject here under search filters. Subject contains, thank you, subject contains oral histories. So that's searching by subject. So basically, this is going to search the catalog for anything that like is identified as an oral history or is about oral histories. It doesn't just have the phrase oral histories any old place in a book. It's really focused on oral histories. And so I'm adding another field with this is just part of history that I wanted to look into a little bit more, the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. I set my search scope to Georgia State University, but that is the default, but you can always put your search scope to the entire university system of Georgia. If there is a loanable material within the university system, we can get that sent to GSU. So you actually have access to way more than you see on our bookshelves at the GSU library. So if you would go to the next slide, please. So there are a few different results. This is just some screenshots of a record for a book called Speaking History, Oral Histories of the American Past, 1865 to present. In the summary here is where you will see if this book or other type of material, it's an abstract or a summary, it's going to tell you what is kind of contained within. And it looks like this is a volume of selected oral histories that feature voices of Americans who lived through critical events shaping the nation's history since the Civil War. It looks like in the content section, this is often there's a content section or kind of like a chapter section, just depending on how the book is cataloged. It looks like there is an oral history about the Dust Bowl, from Oklahoma Dust Bowl to California. So if I really want that that firsthand account of the Dust Bowl, that primary source, someone who really lived through it, it looks like this person, Epigmenio Manuel Rosales, at some point spoke to an interviewer about their experience with the Dust Bowl. So that can be a really, really valuable thing. As we've talked about, there's different formats that oral histories come in. So this is a hardbound book, I think. This isn't an ebook. This doesn't have like an audio feature, I don't think. So this is just really the transcript of an oral history, and that certainly counts as an oral history. There's reasons that you might want to see video or hear the audio. There's a lot of like kind of personality and emotion that really gets put across in the audio format. But if you just kind of need to find an oral history about a topic, I just want you to let you know that this printed form does count as an oral history. So you can think of it as a transcript of an oral history. If you go to the next slide, please. This is a search example I did within our advanced Discover search. So that's when you're on the GSU homepage, that Discover bar. Underneath it, it has an advanced feature, so you can plug in more search fields. So I just used, again, oral history as my subject term. And this time I want to know more about the anti-war movement alongside the Vietnam War. And what this database is going to search is a lot of, it's a kind of a mega database that searches a lot of the databases that we subscribe to at GSU. So we will get helpful scholarly articles about this topic. And we might also get video recordings or audio recordings. So it'll kind of tell the format under the title there. So that is another great place to find oral histories. Next slide. So I want to make you aware of the Oral History Association, or OHA. This list is not comprehensive by any means, but it's just to kind of give you a taste of there being a collection for all sorts of populations, lots of eras in history. There's going to be American and international focused oral history collections. So again, this is a pretty small list, but it just kind of gives you a taste of where to start. And you might be wondering, thank you, Brittany, how are oral histories actually used in research? Next slide. So the OHA, or the Oral History Association, defines oral history as a field of study and a method of gathering, preserving, and interpreting the voices and memories of people, communities, and participants in past events. Next slide. Pardon me. I think this is kind of an interesting, it's kind of a long quote, but I'll still read it out to you. This is kind of an interesting take on sort of the usefulness of oral histories as a methodology. Oral history is a very subjective and personal form of evidence, but that is also one of its great strengths. In the words of the Italian oral historian, I should say historian, Alessandro Portelli, oral sources tell us not just what people did, but what they wanted to do, what they believed they were doing, what they now think they did. Subjectivity is as much the business of history as the more visible facts. Oral history can also give a voice to individuals and groups who are sometimes marginalized in conventional histories. So the spoken word can convey feelings and emotions with an immediacy and an impact that the written word cannot match. So that can be, again, just kind of like the usefulness of oral history, why you might think about conducting your own oral history, or if you're researching a group that might be a little underrepresented in an archive, whose voice you want to hear from firsthand. Oral histories can be really important that way. It's often thought of as kind of a everyday person's history. There are also oral history interviews of very well-known people too, so it can really run the gamut. So at this point, I'm going to share my screen because I wanted to just show you a couple of other examples of oral history databases. So can everyone see my screen? It says Southern Oral History Program.
Yes.
Are we looking at that? Okay, great. So this is a really great program. It's been around since the 1970s from UNC Chapel Hill, and they just have a really really big interview database. They've been doing many different types of projects over the years. This is also just to show you that all these databases look a little bit different. As Brittany showed you, there's ways to kind of browse a little more broadly, and there's also ways to actually like keyword search. Like, let's say exactly who you want to hear from, the name of the interviewee. You can search by that in a keyword, or you can browse. So either of those are available to you. There are many projects. I think this is A through like V, or no, A through Z, and then AA, double B. So this has actually been added to since I last checked it. But you'll see kind of these like broader project names here, and then kind of more specific interviews as time has worn on. So let's see, I just want to show you an example. There's actually a few, just from my familiarity with this SOHP, I happen to know there's a few research projects on the Lumbee Native American tribe. So for example, there are interviews about the Lumbee foodways of Robeson County, North Carolina. There are, was or are, I'm not sure, a population of Lumbee Indians in Philadelphia who are interviewed here about civil rights movement. So oops, I don't think I clicked on the Lumbee one, but that's okay. School desegregation in Birmingham, Alabama. So this is what this looks like. You can click on, it tells you the interviewee, the date, the project, and you can see the audio here. Takes a little while to get going sometimes.
This is an interview on the 16th of June, 2005 in Birmingham, Alabama with Mr. Frank Adams Jr. We're at the Brookwood Medical Center where he has his professional office. My name is Joe Meunier with the Southern Oral History Program at the University of North Carolina, Chapel.
Not many of these, I'm not sure if any of these actually have a video component. So there might be for some interviewees, but there's definitely going to be an audio and a transcript for all of these. So these are typed up pretty much exactly as you hear. These are helpful because you can obviously like search within, if you want to look for specific keywords or something like that. But yeah, these are both good examples of oral histories in this specific database. There's also a really cool collection that the Library of Congress has been doing for many, many years called the Veterans History Project. And like Brittany was kind of saying with some of our, most of our GSU oral history projects, there will be kind of an introduction to like how this project came about, a little bit of background, a little bit of context, who's involved, maybe where the funding came from, et cetera, et cetera. If it's been used in publications, things like that, before you kind of get to the actual database. So this one is pretty interesting. These are all veterans from across, all US veterans from across many different times of conflict. You can refine your search by format. If you're definitely looking for video or definitely looking for audio, you can refine that there. You can narrow down to a war or conflict. You can narrow down to a service branch, locations of service, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whether they were a prisoner of war. So they have over 3,000 interviews with veterans who are prisoners of war, who all have unique stories to tell about that experience. So I think that's just a very, I'm just impressed. I think it's a very important thing that the Library of Congress has been doing over the years. So just as an example, let's go ahead and look for, say we're interested in the Iraq War, and let's see how many Marine Corps veterans interviews we have here. After that, I think they're all just in alphabetical order by last name of the interviewee, and a lot of these have videos. I was checking before we went on, and the sound in some of these is not the best, but it's definitely still worth looking into if you're looking at military history at all, and delving back into some of these personal stories about war, and I'm sure just about some of these veterans' lives before and after conflict. So that's another really interesting project. I think, let's see. I also wanted to talk about citing oral histories, so I'll stop sharing and we can just go back to the slideshow, Brittany. There's different ways to cite oral histories. It really just kind of depends on what style you need to use for your specific discipline. We have a research guide about citation styles at GSU, so I don't know if we necessarily need to click on that because it'll be lots of different examples. So you can ask your professor, what style you will need. But in those handbooks of style, you can look up in the index like oral history or interview. Sometimes those are kind of interchangeable. The Purdue Writing Lab from the Chicago Manual of Style, if you want to click on that for me, Brittany, that'd be great. Does have kind of details about what you need to do to actually cite interviews and personal communication. And here's a few example in the note and bibliography. And I think if you go to the next slide, I think that's my last slide. Just wanted to point out that often citation information is provided in a digital archive. Along with, so this is from the Southern Oral History project, along with a description and interviewee and all this kind of metadata. Here at the very bottom, it tells you kind of exactly what you need to know to cite this as a source properly. So that's not always true, but I find in a lot of the bigger databases, especially at GSU, we give you that citation information for these individual oral history interviews.
Yeah, so now we're going to talk about resources for conducting your own oral history interviews. This will not be exhaustive, but you can also come to one of our later workshops to learn more about how to conduct it and get a little bit of practice. So I'm going to share a different screen. So we are now back to the research guide on oral histories at GSU. And from here, we will go to the Getting Started tab. So under this tab is basically all the documentation that we at Georgia State use when we're considering an oral history interview. Like, what do we need? Like, what is the technical stuff? Like the audio files, what format do they need to be in? What equipment do we need? That kind of thing. So that would be in this document. So we have these PDFs provided and we give recommendations and how to do the setup. And then we also have what's called the interviewee packet. And this is something that helps you with your interviewee, like you provide this to them with sample questions and information on what this is about, like the purpose, the procedures, how this will be conducted, the risks involved, the benefits, the confidentiality, if they have questions, and then they get sample questions so they know what they're going to be asked, like generally. And then we also provide like example agreements within here. So our agreements have changed over time, but we do provide what a standard agreement would look like for that, which that just helps you with legal and ethical considerations, which is another workshop we'll be doing about when you don't have a signature, or when you do, like how to make sure you can actually put it online and not have any problems or use it with your research, that kind of thing. And then we also have the biographical data sheet, and this helps us create the bio and provide information on the interviewee for online or wherever we provide information about the interviewee. So, and then we also have just the release form itself, how we create transcripts, and then how we also do index, which is like not the full transcript, but just like different points within an interview, what subjects were talked about. So this are usually the things that we use in order to consider conducting oral history interviews, and these are all available to you on our research guide. And then we also provide some useful websites to consider going to, like the Oral History Association that Lauren went to. So not only on this website will you find collections, but you'll also find resources. So the best practices for conducting oral history interviews and what you need to do and what participants need to do and all that. It even gives you information on how to conduct remote interviews, so via Zoom and other video conferencing. There's a whole guide on that. And then there's also links to other web guides on doing oral history interviews and what you need to know. So that provides you with a list of where you can go, so you can visit UCLA and other like institutions to get their like take on, oh, this is how you write a transcript, or this is the equipment we use. A lot of people use the same thing because they found that this is the standard of doing it. So you'll find the same information at a lot of places, but some of these places have it condensed, so it's not like so overwhelming, the information about conducting an interview. So like 8 steps to doing oral history. That sounds great. It's so quick and easy, and it's nicely laid out. So if you're one who doesn't want a lot of information, just what you need to do, this looks like a great resource to figure out how to do oral history interviews. But I will say that a lot of oral history interviews is just taking the time to learn how to do them and get comfortable doing them. So it's always about practicing and doing mock interviews with friends and family, that kind of thing. So if we go back to our research guide, you'll also see, so you'll see that we also have Oral History in the Digital Age, which is another website you can consider going to learn about what it means to conduct oral histories now and what you can do. And then History Map, what is oral history, just gives you information about oral histories and everything like that. So we just provide a few resources, but like we generally do workshops at least every year. We will provide workshops and provide you the ability to learn more about interviewing and do mock interviews. And then you can always just reach out to Georgia State Special Collections and Archives and ask us about oral history interviews and how we conduct them, because we are always happy to talk to people about it. So that's general how you can find some resources. And then there's so much more out there. As you can see, there's a lot of websites and places that provide information on how to do oral history. So I'm going to change it back to the PowerPoint. Oh, and then you see resources. These are our upcoming workshops. So next we have the policies and ethics of doing oral history. So those legal and ethical considerations you need to take into account. And then also what policies you should follow in general. Then after that, it's how to plan a project. And then in March, we'll be talking about how to record them, what equipment to use, and then how to preserve them after the fact. And then the last training, last workshop on March 8th will be about actually conducting interviews and getting into it and the tips that we have for doing that. So these are all the links. Feel free to take a screenshot of that, but it's available on the library workshop and events page. All of these are listed and you can register to attend them if you haven't already. And I think with that, we are done and can take questions. Feel free to unmute or put your questions in the chat. But if you don't have questions, that's fine. We'll hang out for another minute just in case.
For the oral history kit, how do we go about getting that?
The oral history, can you repeat that?
The I think you called it a kit that has the questionnaires and the
Oh yes. So this
the-
interviewee packet.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go to our research guide, the oral histories at GSU, and then go to getting started tab, you'll see the interviewee packet example listed. And if you click on that link, it will download it or open up a new tab and you can download it from the website. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. And during our how to plan and the interviewing, we'll be providing some of this documentation as like links for you to use and stuff like that. So we'll probably give you that information or go over it again. So don't worry.
I'm just gonna put my email address in the chat because I'm not sure that we have it on our slides. So if you don't have a question now, that is totally okay. But you can always get in touch with any of us. My email is lbellard@gsu.edu.
Yes, and I put mine in there too, just in case.
And thanks to everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you for attending.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you know if there is any future in a connection between oral history projects or archiving and the Department of Communication?
I'm not sure. Those would probably be kept with our university archives, and I haven't seen any. We don't have a lot of oral history projects as a part of the university archives, but it's probably something that we'd be interested in pursuing. Any other questions? Well, feel free to email us with any questions that you have. Try to attend the other workshops if you can. And yeah, we're gonna end it for now and hope to see you guys at the other ones.
Thanks, everybody.